Um, Hi there, ladies and jelly beans. Do not adjust your screens. It is the one, the only Sacha Stone on screen. Who is he? What is he? What's he doing here? You are going to find out. Sacha Stone, my friend, welcome, sir. How are you?
Thank you, and a very warm welcome in return from the sunny climes of Portugal.
And what are you doing in Portugal?
My family live here, so I come here when I can, maybe once, twice a year at the most, and hang out in the sun, drink good.
Ah, beautiful, beautiful. Is that your dad?
No, this is my mum. My father's in the United Kingdom. To those who don't believe that he's Sir Walter fucking somebody or other who died in 1975, which I read last week, again howled with laughter. No, Dad lives in Norfolk in England, with two of my brothers are there. The other two are in one's in Sweden, one's in the United States. My mum and my sister are here in Portugal.
Ah, that's beautiful. So it's interesting you just said something you read about yourself last week, and this is one of the reasons why I've got you on my channel today, because a lot of people don't know that you and I are mates. We've been mates for a few years now, and I would, if someone was to say to me, "Who is Sacha Stone?" I would very firstly say he is a humanitarian. How would you describe yourself?
I mean that'll do me fine. Thank you, and I appreciate that. I tend to default in referring to myself as a disgruntled hominid, but if I were to push it, I'd say a frontline activist. And by activist, really, I think what I mean is consciousness in action, that kind of activism. So I don't have a cause. I'm not trying to save the Shetland ponies. I'm not screaming about Gaza. I'm not choosing any particular metric. I am really in service to the resurrection of the angelic genome in the face of a how to put it, psycho-civilizational, satanic, luciferic thrall, and how we resurrect ourselves as a genus from this galactic rinse cycle that we've been caught up in, the fiction of time. That's really my shtick. My shtick is just about how do we, using that singularity tool of consciousness in action, which is to own the now, own the living moment, own the Atman, own your life force, own your incarnation, own the shitty, squalid, metric of your life, if indeed that's what it is, and say how I steered myself into this vector of time space. I'm here for a good reason. I'm anointed and appointed by the God within and not the God without. I could care less about the God without. That indeed is the crossroad that we've come to civilizationally, is that the false light adulation to the God outside of self is the very Diablo, is the egregore, is the elemental cloud intelligence, the fucking Yahweh, angry, jealous God. And that syndrome is what we now need to emerge through, resurrect ourselves from. So whatever it takes, as far as I'm concerned, but my most of my activities are engaged in either calling out the status quo in that sense, but spending more of my life force in seeking ways in which to embody, enact, and manifest the new earth, which is why my foundational movement is called New Earth, because it's about how do we group dream that new earth into manifestation and stop just circle jerking and bitching about the status quo. So activism that just throws stones at the citadel, I don't have any time for myself. And the reason why I've personally not withdrawn from the truth and disclosure movement, but I've kind of pulled back somewhat. I'm not doing my weekly Arise Guerrilla News broadcasting. I stopped that last year. I started to focus more on the mechanics of how we build and manifest that new earth. How do we create the new zero point social ecology, the new zero point economy? How do we incubate the zero point technologies and get them into manufacture, get them into the market? How do we establish the jurisdiction of the kingdom of heaven in our lives and tell government to go and fuck itself? How do we do these things lawfully, legally, lawfully, morally, ethically, and in good standing with our highest conscience? That's the kind of activism that I'm engaged in.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And it's so much, it's such a lot. You've covered so many different bases and areas in such great depth for many, many years. I mean, decades. You've been out there in the field for absolutely decades and decades. We've got all these little newbies coming in to disclosure, right? They're like, oh, let's have a go with that. Let's make a name in that. It's like, just piss off, sit down. You know, there are people out here who've been here a long time, little one. They go, "Oh, I've never heard of him," or so they don't matter. It's like, oh my God, have you got some learning to do? Now, you mentioned the name Yahweh as one of the names of God. There's Jehovah and Hashem, and oh my God, literally. And it's so interesting how many people have been raised in their religions with a name adopted to a god like Yahweh. And some of us believe that Yahweh is the enlil, the negative, the all killing, all murdering, you're all sinners. And he can stick it up his jacksie as far as I'm concerned too. But there are people I know who are devoted, who only hold on to the name because that's what's programmed in. And they're having a very hard time, with that. Now, it was Yehudaberg, I think, who created the Kabbalah, modern day Kabbalah writings. One of the books was the 72 Names of God, within which he described all of the elements I'm talking about, the different names and how they belong and how could there be so many? Do you know what I mean? And it's a time right now where in England, where I'm living, I actually believe that, the government and the Keir Starmer idiot and the Charlie boy, they're all extreme Islamists, but they're actually tricking the Islamists because their main god is Satan. And the Islamists, some of them don't know that wrapped up in this book is amazing. Oh my God, Sacha, this guy, Kurt Barker, he was a little boy. Have you ever heard of him? This book
No.
is absolutely shocking, shocking, shocking. It's a shocking on a different level to Kathy O'Brien's book. We'll come to her. The guy in
Right.
here, his dirty pedo satanic uncle used to abuse him, take him round to people's houses that did human eating of other people. Very wealthy, of course, very, very wealthy, and used to dress him up as a little girl, call him Kathy, make him wear dresses, all the ritual humiliation rituals that they do to break the child's soul. Anyway, he got out of it, and he, in this book, says that Islam was born inside Afghanistan, but actually it's a horrendous trick because it's actually Satan, Lucifer, who is the ultimate. I think that Prince Charles, whatever his name is, allowing people to stand on the bridge and pray to Mecca. I think there is, I think a lot of them have turned, but they're also lying to the Islamic people. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, in the first, you mentioned Yehuda Berg. I know Yehuda Berg. I've spent time with him, and he's a very, very interesting, fascinating guy. But he's the son of Rav and Karen, who were the progenitors, I think, of that form of mystical Judaism that you're referring to. As far as I'm concerned, the Islamic piece, as my followers know, 25 years ago, I was a student of Islam, not because I'm pro-Islam, but because I wanted to understand and learn what it was that I could see was being fomented as the source code of a clash of civilizations. And I was utterly possessed at that time with the need to understand it. So, coming from a kind of Sufic mystical background anyway, as a child, I was interested in that piece, and I studied Islam for a few years. Ended up meeting with the Grand Mufti and receiving a very special benediction from the highest authority in Islam at that time, the Grand Mufti Muhammad al-Tantawi al-Azhar in Egypt. And as a result of that, ended up being received by Muslim clerics all around the world and royal Islamic households all around the world. And so I have a pretty rich and colorful past there in that whole pantheon of Islamism. In Indonesia, of course, with the royals there, the sultans and rajas and kings that I'm known to consort with and have been working very keenly toward hereditary redemption in that part of the world, got fuck all to do with Islam, everything to do with the hereditary redemption of the good people of Central and Southeast Asia, of Southeast Asia, who have been subjugated through colonial conquest, like the rest of the planet since in the last 500 years. So you talk about Islam, it's an entire cauldron, a kind of toxic cauldron of info, disinfo, and double disinfo, in the same way that false light Luciferic Christianity is. So latter-day Christian devotion is Luciferianism, and they just don't know it. It's devoting oneself to crucifixes, to totems, to icons, to idols, to iconoclasticism, to the ideas that exist outside of Atman, outside of your integrated being. And so that becomes idolatry. And most Christians, at most of the time, are swept into that kind of salvation exercise. And I was asked, did a public talk I'm in Portugal now, last week, this time I was in South Africa and I was doing a public talk and it was incredibly well attended. And at the end, it was a 3 hour talk. And at the end, I took a few questions in and it was in a church. Oftentimes I do my talks in churches. And one lady at the back stood up and challenged me and said, "Have you given yourself to Jesus?"
Oh,
And that is the only question I have for you, young man, kind of thing. After I'd done a 3 hour full tilt, truth and disclosure, explaining how, the orchestration of monotheistic religiosity was the weaponization of the sentient angelic human. And I'd done this 3 hour fucking lecture. And then to get that reductive, kind of stupid, but understandable question coming from a devout Christian who had sat arguably biting her bottom lip until she had a chance to ask that question. But have you given your life to Jesus? And I said, Madam, I could think of nothing more abhorrent than giving my life to anything or anyone outside of actualized self. That to me is an abomination. And I refuse to get pulled into the vortex of your spiritual moralizing here. So be very careful, or I'll pull out a stick and beat you with it in this church. So I said, respectfully and with the greatest love, sit down and shut up. Because until you have swallowed the bitter pill in life and actually gone into the Lazarus, resurrecting yourself through the shamanic death and rebirth, and actually crossed that line into self and got out of your false light devotion, you're not qualified to have a conversation with me in that adversarial way. In any event, so bottom line, she took it well, came up at the end and wanted a hug, and blah blah blah. Point being, I was trying to make a point because there were a lot of people in that church, hundreds, who were devout Christians, fairly orthodox. We talk about the Dutch Reformed, pretty orthodox. And I know that as I'm speaking against religious idolatry, it is deeply offending the sensitivities and sensibilities of so many people. Good. This is necessary and needful. So the point I'm making here, Danny, and in answer to your question, is the false light idolatry that is registered as Christianity, mainstream Christianity today, is not Christianity. If you want to understand the man from Nazareth, if you want to understand the mystical tradition of Christianity, if you want to understand anything to do with the life and times of Jesus, Yeshua, and that is all a convocation, a concoction of the Roman Catholic Church. But the point being, you would have to go back to the Essenes, to the Cathars, and really understand the true message of Christos, of Christ, of Jesus. So I don't, I can hold my own with scholars in Islam, with scholars and I've done it for many, many years, with scholars in Christianity, and also with scholars in the Judaic traditions. And 90% of all of these people that dress themselves up in religion are false light idolaters. They just don't know it, and they have not yet emerged from that chrysalis. But that's being forced upon us now. Why? Precisely because of the point you're trying to make, that these religious myths are being exposed for what they were at the very source code. They are not the thing. They are an idea, a concoction, taking tremendous advantage over the gullibility and the sweetness of humanity.
yeah, that's brilliant. And again, just to touch back on the Islamic reference points that we've both been making here, I believe in every religion there is an element of beauty. So in no way do I mean to offend any pure-hearted people that follow Islam as their religion and the Prophet Muhammad. I'm referring to the extreme, radical
Oh,
hate.
Danny, we're both saying the same thing. So let's be crystal clear to
Oh,
your audience.
totally,
My
totally.
audience, no. To your audience, let's be crystal clear. Islam and the Islamic mystical tradition is profoundly moving and stirring and beautiful. as is the Judaic, as is the Christian, as is the Buddhist, as is the Taoist, as is the Shinto. I can go on. But the point is that we have been manipulated and culturally mind-fucked through monotheistic religiosity, which has become a cultural cage. And that system is now being pitted against other cultural cage systems. And that is what's bringing about this unbelievable unrest at the civilizational level. And it's incumbent upon each of us, especially people like you and I, who position ourselves at the front end of truth and disclosure, to be brutally honest about such matters.
It's and there's so many people that are afraid to have these discussions. And like I said to you earlier the other day, I thought, oh my God, I really need to have a conversation with someone. I was thinking, who out of my mates is someone who's got the courage and then it doesn't have to worry about upsetting an audience, or especially in the galactic space, because there's so much infiltration everywhere. And I thought, oh, Sacha, I
Mm.
left you a long message.
Darling, just last week alone,
Yeah.
we lost one of my companies lost tremendous investment. It was withdrawn because of the due diligence that had been done on me. Due diligence being Wikipedia, of course, by
Oh
it.
my God,
So,
no.
and that of course has anti-Semitic alongside my name. I just mentioned to you Yehuda Berg. Know him, spend time with him. I've spent time with these great people. I've spent time with so many religious leaders and spiritual leaders. I've been in temple reading, from the good book, with my Jewish friends and with my Islamic friends and with my Christian friends. I am completely every man when it comes to that. And the idea that I'm anti-Semitic is for me an abomination. I'm very anti-Khazarian mafia. Yes, I'm anti-Sabbatean Khazarian mafia. That does not make me anti-Jewish. That makes me anti-satanic, anti-Saturnian. I have no time for black box, a black cube Saturnian bullshit. Why? Because it devours the soul of the living and of the angelic. That is why. But we don't even need to get into this discourse, because all this stuff is about to be um, gifted to humanity through revelation, in pure light and pure truth.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Now, one of our very dear friends that we share is the one and only Kathy O'Brien. And she's speaking at my next conference. But the last couple of weeks, we've also been doing a download on her book, because you and I know that she's named the names of the monsters and the mechanics of the
30 years ago. Yeah.
30 years ago. And I'm like, Kathy, I feel terrible, mate. I feel terrible like getting you on my channel again, but there's people 30 years behind the information they have to know right now. They got to get over themselves. And one of the things I really believe about religion, or politics, or whatever it is that when people find out they've been lied to, they have to be okay with being wrong. And a lot of people's ego, it just cannot let them. So what they do is they turn against you. And that's what's been happening to me in my field, all the infiltration, people coming in to destroy, because we're so close with the light, with the truth of everything. And people are scared. And so they respond, not always in the most positive manner, because they don't want to be wrong.
My
What do
experience of
you
human nature is that the counterpoints are saying the same thing. My experience of nature is that we generally and genuinely believe ourselves to be carriers of light, even when we're lost to it. And that's the false light. It's very, very difficult to discern between vibral light, and false light and the fallen light of Atlantis. Very, very difficult. And oftentimes in the course of a lifetime, we're lost and found, in equal measure to ourselves through the labyrinth of truth. But you just have to let people go their way, Danny. I don't appreciate people slandering other people in the public domain. When I see that, I know where the wrong action is stemming from, and I step back. So I've never slandered anyone in the public domain, other than oath keepers, and people who are in service to the public. So if it's somebody who is a Joseph Biden or a Nancy Pelosi or a Bill Gates or an Anthony Fauci, the obvious targets for our wrath, then fair game. Anyone who's a public servant, the Pope in Rome. These are fair game targets, but it's not about slander. That's about, tearing the mask off these Diablos. So that's fair game. But the rest of it, you'll never hear me say a bad thing about, I couldn't say anything bad about my colleagues, even if I despised what's coming out of them. I will purposefully avoid speaking against them in the public domain. And in the private, I would generally try to take it to them and lay that at their feet and see how that plays forward. But I don't have the wherewithal to get involved in those internecine fights. But God, I understand what you're saying. I feel it, and I've seen it, and I continue to see it. But my chosen method is to just not engage.
Yeah, after a while, that's kind of where, I've got to. Now and again, I'd have a little pop, at someone and give them a smack for
Fair
being
enough.
naughty, right, in public. But the last few months of severe infiltration, let's say in the galactic space,
Yes.
and people who have just seemed to have just gone a sharp left turn. I decided with a very close colleague that we're not even going to bother responding to it because that just feeds the dark. It just feeds the lies. And there's people that are just brand new into this information of, disclosing the white hats and the goody teas from the Galactic Federation of Worlds. And
Yeah.
there's people, and they're in a spin. They're looking for a position. So they're coming in attacking those of us that have been out front for a while, and they don't have any of the information. All they're doing is listening to what's brand new. And then those that are confused, they're like, oh, I'm not going to go to that conference. I don't know what's going on. People are falling out. To me, that's just as bad as joining a negative conversation because they're not advocating for themselves. They're not allowing themselves to go, do you know what? I'm going to step forward and figure out for myself what I'm going to do, who I'm going to connect to, how I'm going to connect to my soul family and my tribes. And even looking at long-term history, let's say of my conferences, we always bring the spacecraft. We always bring the military craft. We're proving they work together, Sacha. No one
Yeah.
else is doing that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so now, on every level, we are attacked because they don't want this information out. Well, too bad, so sad, and definitely too late, mate,
Mm.
because we won. And people need to realize that. And I do wish people would just bloody well stand up for themselves and stop being a baby pissy boy in the corner and go, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to listen to myself, do my own research. You mentioned Wikipedia. No one should read a bloody Wikipedia at all. They're infiltrated. Look at our friends, Dr. Christiane Northrup, Kathy O'Brien, you. They write shit in there. People read it thinking it's gospel, which it's not, and go, oh yeah. And then
They help to sweep our temple floor, as far as I'm concerned. Anyone, like I said, to the people who do due diligence on Wikipedia are so vacuous and shallow. It's a shameful exercise to allow a decision to be made based on that kind of diligence. That's just a reflection of a low frequency at the soul level. So I have no time for that nonsense, and that's the reason why I also don't go out of my way to attack people who are attacking me, is because I see them serving. I see that the trolls out there, a couple of hack, nobody YouTube journalists who have tried to buddy up with me over the years, and I have not wanted to play, and then they've turned against me and fed into this rhetoric that I'm a crown agent and a Vatican assassin and a pedophile and God knows all the shit that's slung at me. And it's delightful in its way. Just allow it to continue to conflate. And anyone in my circle or my networks who chooses to align to that frequency of mistruth, then they will gravitate toward that and out of my circle, out of my ambit. That's cleaning my temple floor. So that's how I see it, because that is how counterpoint geometry works at the energetic level. As long as we're in a state of witness and grace, or the I am, sufficiently to allow things to happen without getting psycho-emotionally identified with them.
that's so beautiful. I love it. Sweep my temple floor, bitch. Do it now and do it well. Brilliant. Now, the last time you and I were physically together, they've got a beautiful photo. I might actually use it for the thumbnail for this broadcast. It was you, me, and Kathy in the back of a taxi in Vegas.
Oh
At
yeah.
that time, yeah, at that time, and I've told this story a while. I love it when I tell a story on my channel and then the person comes on and I go, "Do you remember when?" Because it's always this like checking and validating and proving, and sharing that this happened and it was amazing. So it was the Awakening tour. And there were 5,000 people there in a big old field somewhere in a huge marquee. And it was Clay, I forget his name, I'd never met him before, but you were invited to speak and you gave up part of your time for our darling Kathy O'Brien to stand
Yeah.
on stage. Do you remember that?
Well, I'd agreed to come in to do that event on condition that I could bring Kathy in and that she could have half my time to speak, so that Middle America, especially that beautiful Christian Middle American audience that you just described, could hear from her. And I was very honored to stand aside there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. For me, one of the great moments, and there was a really strange thing energetically that happened. I don't know if you remember this, but so Roseanne Barr was there, right, with her son Jake. She was speaking. Kathy O'Brien was speaking. You were speaking. We're all sitting together backstage, and there's a lady doing Roseanne's eyelashes. And there was another man, I won't mention his name, very big, very well-known man. And who was the lovely lady that exposed Fauci as the who created AIDS? What was her name?
Right.
Mikovic. Mikovic, Judy
Judy,
Mikovic.
yeah.
She
Mhm.
was backstage as well. She came. We were all sitting down in this little group together, waiting to go. Oh, Mel K was there as well. And Judy Mikovic was coming towards me. And I looked behind me because I felt something really odd, like energetically. And I felt so all of a sudden panicked. There was something backstage. I'm like, all these beautiful people here, these speakers of truth into the field, all targets, all of you are targets. And I remember running to Joanne, who was there at the time, our friend, and saying to her, something's really, really wrong. I said, you got to get out. You got to get out. And I was trying to say to you, like, I'm not sure. I don't feel really uneasy. And you went, it's fine like that because you had your own like bubble, your own kind of council. And I don't know what that was, but some real negative, dark,
Always, always,
satanic
always in
energy.
those venues. So
Yeah,
it just goes with the territory. There's a
yeah.
lot of Wicca witchcraft going on, a lot of that kind of bedevilment. And, I just had it in Tennessee in an unholy way leading up to the consecration and proclamation event, which we just pulled off, which was a huge piece of history that we pulled off. But leading up to that, the degree of witchery that we put up with, the death threats and the ugliness and the hexing, it's very real stuff. And you do have to a great extent, be very prepared and somewhat prescient of those elemental forces, because when they come at you, they can take you down. They can sure as hell tie your shoelaces together.
It's so crazy. Glastonbury, the Glastonbury Symposium, the oldest conference in Great Britain. I was invited to speak there a couple of weeks ago on my book, Angels, Demons, and Aliens and What I Do. My book here. And I was so honored. The money was shit though. I'm like, how much do you pay? I'm really honored. How much do you pay? They were like 180 quid. I'm like, oh my God, I pay my speakers thousands. I'm doing something wrong. Anyway, I negotiated 20 quid to 200, but I didn't care, honestly. It was such an honor to speak. So right before my presentation, which was after lunch, I went into the hall with no one there, just a couple of people that are doing the AV and the audio. And I was with my friend Nikki Allen, who's a beautiful, very well-known medium. I started walking ahead of her in the ancient hall, and this energy just like slammed, and I went, "Oh my God!" I went buff, buff like that. Now I'm like, rah. And I'm like, "Wow!" I said, "That was put there. That was sent there." And then Nikki's walking along doing the clearing, going, "Oh, Danny, doesn't matter. It wasn't that bad." But like you say, the energy is there all of the time. But when you truly are just passionate and bursting with love for humanity, we're unbeatable now. And that old 3D energy that was keeping us in that, the old spells, the black magic, the ties that bound, they don't hold anymore. The magic's not holding anymore. The spells are not holding anymore. Have you
Well, I'll let you know if I think you're absolutely correct the way you're describing the shift in the nature of light and that shift in the nature of light means that the obstacles, the hexes, the spell binding does not have traction in the way that it did or has for millennia. That is true, but one wonders if that also means that the certain enclaves become even more energetically entrenched. I'll give you an example. Try going into the Security Council of the United Nations, which I've done on a number of occasions. Try going into the inner sanctum at the Vatican, as I did even last year. And I get hit. In the past, every time I've crossed the threshold at the Vatican or at the United Nations, I have passed out, lost consciousness.
Wow.
So momentarily, for half a second, two, maybe a second, second and a half, but enough to fall back and be caught, it got to a point where I always had someone behind me to catch me. So I know that, and I don't, I have an idea of those hyperdimensional physics and how they work, but it's my understanding that certain enclaves, like the ones I've described, are firewall. They do have very special firewalls that have created. So once you step into the threshold and you're over the threshold and you're in the jurisdiction of Vaticanus or of the the Crown of England, arguably, or the Security Council of the United Nations, or the inner sanctum of Basel, Switzerland, one imagines. And I'm sure there's a great many other enclaves that we could conjure up, Bohemian Grove and so on and so forth. But to be sure, this is just witchcraft and black magic writ large. That's what it is.
Well, let's move to another place I wanted to mention to people watching the infiltration of energy fields. Me and Elena Danan were at Universal Studios. I think this was in 2022. And all she wanted to do, I wanted to ride one ride, and she wanted to see the little Harry Potter alley because, I know we're told all these things and it's probably all true, but we just wanted a little break, and also to feel energetically for ourselves. And so we were walking around the Harry Potter area, and then I can't even get that girl on a swing. Yet she's on bloody spacecraft, right? I tell you, she's a nightmare. She won't go on a roller coaster. She won't go on a swing with me. Anyway, so she was waiting while I did the ride, and she was walking up and down, looking at the little wandy, the little magic wands and the cutesy stuff there. And then we'd already done protection going in, of course, and we were started walking up to the castle. And at the same second, we went, "Oh my God." It was like bang. And then we both looked down at the ground and I went, "Oh my God." I said, "Can you feel that?" And she said, "Yes." And I can taste it. We could both taste blood. I'm like, you couldn't even make it up. But that area, whatever they've done in that castle, there's been some very dark deeds. And it sounds like, oh, don't be ridiculous. It's a children's castle. It has been used for nefarious, horrific, horrendous things just by feeling in the body, even if we had no proof of that. And again, there are so many places like that exist. Can you share some of your other experiences?
Oh God, too many to mention when it comes to that kind of stuff. But again, with the changing field of light comes that change of human consciousness and the activation of the so-called noosphere, and that, like some magic galactic or cosmic eraser, is really changing those intersecting nodes on the planet, which define those energetic hubs where activities have been orchestrated and blood rites have been enacted and orchestrated historically, precisely in order to anchor this plane of existence into another cycle of Cronus, of time, and of another galactic underpass, so to speak. So whenever we come across those kinds of event horizons in our lives, you have to see them, Danny, in such a way as to own the fact that your energy is required to be in that vector at that geophysical location at that time in the in the calendric system, precisely in order to unlock and decode and unlock the spell bonding that occurred in that vector. So I think the important thing is not to become too fascinated by those incidents, but to just reckon with the fact that as you sail through life as an energetic being, preferably as an angelic being, your function, primary function, is to dissolve, quell, and bring into dissolution those old compacts, those old energetic vectors, which again are the anchor points of the Saturnian, the Satanic, and the Luciferic. So it's not so much about being fascinated with these incidents as it is just owning the fact that whatever presents itself to you in this world, whatever, whenever I've had a horrible incident, something nasty happens in my life, rather than feel like I'm a victim of circumstance or a victim of some tragedy, to just fully intoxicate yourself in that moment. Whether it's a poltergeist haunting is a classic example, incidentally, and God knows I've lived through that stuff. But rather than to think, oh God, I'm a victim of this circumstance and I am now under psychic attack, because the first reflex we have is, oh God, I'm under attack. No, you are the angelic one who is the trigger for the revelation of light that will now undo the capacity of this disembodied force to continue to harm. You are the one coming to qualify, to resolve, to remediate, to ameliorate, to end that contract. So when you flip the script and you're not the victim, but you are the salvation, you are the redeemer, in your enactment and your manifestation and your being here now, that changes the whole script. And then, curiously enough, the minute you flip that script, you are no longer subject to anything. Nowadays, I don't have those engagements. I never have psychic attacks. I have people describing them to me all the time. I have very psychic friends and clairvoyants and sensitives saying, "Oh my God, they're coming at you. They can't you see it?" And I'm not, no, I cannot. I cannot see or feel it, and I'm completely in a different zone. And I think it's because I have fully flipped that script, and I now cannot, for one fleeting instant, identify myself with being a victim of anything ever.
Oh, that's so beautiful to turn it on its head like that. Now, you mentioned poltergeist, and I remember a story that you told me about a ghostie in your
Yeah.
dad's house. And you met your dad when you were a fully grown man, and you went to England. And then what happened? Tell us
Well,
about
I wasn't a fully grown man. I mean, I was a 17-year-old kid, but,
it.
and I
Teenage.
don't know a 17-year-old kid that's a man. But yeah, point taken. I met Dad when I was grown. That's true. That's true. Yeah, there a lot of poltergeist activity in my up until my mid 20s, late 20s. Forgive me, up until my late 20s, and the full on reptilian manifestation was the end of the road. And that was the last thing that happened to me. And that was must have been 90, I don't know, 97, 98, around about then. But that was a full-on 3D manifestation of a reptilian, which occurred with an Italian journalist who'd come to interview me for a rock and roll magazine, and from Italy, he'd come to England to interview me, and had been really pushing for that interview, and she was a real hottie as well, and she came to my home to do this deep dive interview, and and it went very, very bad. And this she ended up going catatonic, and then this creature manifested in the room, and that was for me an absolute uh, defining event horizon in my life, because I had to work out how to survive that moment, um, and or not. But for me, after I threw myself into a brick wall to try and get away from it and realized there was no escape because she was catatonic, it was standing there. It was, 9, 10, 11 foot tall, but crouched down into the living room of my home in London, in West London, and it brought midday, middle of the day. I mean, and there was no getting past it, and it wasn't an hallucination, and so I had to reckon with that moment in time. And the reckoning was that I think hitting my head on the wall to try and escape it by pushing myself through a wall rather than try to get past it to the door. I think that was the thing that helped, because when you knock sense into yourself, it really pulled me, it stunned me, and I was pulled into the living moment. Again, I saw her still catatonic. I saw the reptile still here, about to eviscerate me. And then I reckoned with the fact that there was no escape from this event, from this moment. So stop putting energy into trying to escape. Instead, collapse into the being in the moment into being here fully present. And that was the saving grace. And that's why I've subsequently evolved an entire metric in life based on the geometry of the living moment, conducting right action, standing in pure truth, because that is the redemption, that is the salvation, that is how we excise ourselves from the so-called matrix, is by collapsing perfectly, nesting perfectly into the geometry of the living moment and not seeking to escape anything and not feeling a victim of anything, but actually recognizing that everything is absolutely perfect in the now and is perfectly counterpoint geometry to what you have invoked up to this point in the trajectory of your growth. And so it was my looking at that reptilian creature into the yellowed eyeball and then recognizing that it was only manifesting by my permission, one, that it was the sum total of the expression of the unresolved aspects of the entire journey of my soul in one perfect moment in the here and now, and that that is what had come to meet me. And had I not, because that was a shamanic death and rebirth exercise going on, I now know, had I not reckoned with that pure truth, I may well have been found dead in my living room, cardiac arrest or whatever, however these things happen,
Yeah.
But that for sure was on the cards. And that bitch journalist had been sent as a witch from Torino in Italy, which we later found out was the epicenter of high Wicca witchcraft. And had come as the conduit of that reptilian manifestation. So I now, subsequent to that, and I told this to Dave Icke many years ago, subsequent to that event, I had no problems with understanding the full mystery, the alpha omega mystery of life, of how things happen. Somebody's found dead in a hotel, somebody collapses on the street. Oftentimes, time freezes and they get involved in an event, something to do with extraterrestrials, to do with some hyper subdimensional entities. And there's a real engagement that happens, but the rest of the world locks and then there's a battle. So this idea of reality being what we generally can consensually think it is so far off the mark. There are no rules in this cauldron of creation, this void within which we find ourselves. And I think the true humility knows that there are no rules whatsoever, which is why we must only ever become fully intoxicated on the wisdom of insecurity and learn that being cast adrift in the void, in the great abyss, but being in a suspended state of grace at all times, always in honor, always in truth, always in kindness, always in grace, I think is the that's the living gospel.
Wow, that's beautiful. What a fascinating tale of the reptilian. I was going to ask you because it seemed like intuitively as you're sharing that it was to do with the woman.
Yeah.
When she was catatonic, was it because it had kind of expelled itself from her, like hiding, like mimicking, like in her
Yeah.
field and
I imagine that her life force had been carrying it and that she was involved as just one of these kind of generational satanic families, arguably, and she's carrying that kind of avatar reptilian entity with her, using her life force as the gel, and then she goes to a particular venue, goes catatonic. It becomes the enlivened aspect. It manifests in the field as the creature that it is, which is her as well. So oftentimes it could be a news anchor, it could be, your geography teacher, it could be the bus conductor who is harboring a similar reptilian avatar element, and they can be activated in ceremonies. Where you learn if you study how these ritual Satanists conduct their business in life. Oftentimes it is school teachers and bus conductors and members of parliament and notaries and registrars from the local courtroom and the local airline pilot, or it could be somebody who's a nobody washing dishes in the fucking hotel. It doesn't matter. Each of these people, when they come into that convention of their satanic coven, have a different pecking order. They all have different functions. Mostly they do conform. So parliamentarians, heads of state, royalty, all the way down the pecking order does tend to correspond both in the coven and outwardly. There's a kind of a pecking order, but it's not strictly the case. I mean, if you study I'm trying to remember the name of these amazing, the most horrendous uh, satanic story of child abuse that happened in Australia, and I interviewed the beautiful son and daughter of the Satanist. They're now must be in their 50s or 60s, but years ago we took their testimony for the International Tribunal, and they were telling me about back in the day, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, when Dad, who was not an important person in Australia, but in the Satanic Coven, he was a hugely important guy because he was the butcher. He was the guy who disposed of the kids after they'd been ceremonially, ritually, sacrificed and culled. And he would bring the kids that had been captured and trafficked back to the family home where his children would play with those kids in the basement, locked up in the house, and they would slice puppies' throats open and as for playtime and learn about all this trauma stuff that was being inducted into them. And then these kids would be slaughtered in the masses, and then he would be disposing of the bodies also in his home, in the grounds of his home. And these kids, his own kids, were helping Daddy, you know, kill the kids and then bury their body, chop them up and bury them and all the rest of it. And only much later in life did they, when he died, the old man, did they come good and end up giving testimony. And we were trying to work with them to get the police in Australia to go back to the family home because they could tell where the bodies were
And
of those kids, and the police didn't want to get involved.
yeah,
Surprise, surprise.
it's
Why? Because
so,
they've always been involved.
of
And
course.
that's the point I'm trying to make is that their daddy was a very important person in the satanic cult, but he was a piece of shit nobody in the pecking order of life. And so you just can't tell. You have to, in a sense, go through life again, intoxicated in the wisdom of insecurity, not pretending that you know, but being in a state of grace at all times, knowing that that grace will navigate you and your path. Anyway, I'll shut up there.
No, please don't shut up because I want to tell you something that you don't know what I'm doing later. I'm interviewing because she's a friend of mine, Rachel Vaughan. And
That's
this
what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Rachel.
exactly, you
So,
didn't
so
even know.
beloved Rachel, and
Yeah.
you tell her that I love her.
Ah,
Such an angelic being, that woman.
she's
Angelic being.
so beautiful.
I'm describing her.
Yeah, she's amazing. And it's and her friend, because we as you and I do, we find them all. Kathy O'Brien, Rachel Vaughan, Max Lowen. Max Lowen is exposing the Vatican. She was a satanically raised child, high bloodline, and she was trafficked underneath the Vatican during the summer holidays, no less. And she's out there with her testimony on stage. They're both on my channel later today. And yeah, the Beaumont children.
Beaumont.
The
That's what I was scratching for, the Beaumont
yeah.
case. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so Doug, her brother, who had to watch those children become
Right.
disposed, all three.
That's
It's
right.
one of Australia's most biggest unsolved mysteries. We're like, hey, numbnuts, here's the
Mm,
family, here's the proof. They've given you the house address, the
mm.
coordinates on the land, go dig. But but everyone who's been complicit, and I had Kathy O'Brien on last week. I was saying to her, when the people took you down, at the a NASA installation in I forget where, there are so many, and they were injecting her with the CIA NASA drug called Tranquility. They
Yeah,
would test it on Kathy O'Brien, then roll it out to all the other slaves and MK Ultra robotic people, God
that's
love
right.
them. Yeah, and I said, the men that strapped you down, the security guards, the doctors, the nurses, every one of them is complicit and will be named. None of them will ever get away with, oh, I was just doing my job. You can shut up. You're not getting away with it. Or the ones that were allowed to gang rape her because they were going to end her life at 30 in a movie, in a snuff film. No, 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 no. They better know what time it is. And so they should all be coming forward and talking, right? That's the best thing they can do is talk and own it.
Sorry, darling. Just asking to keep the noise down a bit in the background here. Yeah.
Okay, we did that very
I'm,
politely. Very polite, Sasha, of you. So anyway, yeah, so Kathy, back to Kathy, again saying, darling, so sorry to keep putting you through it. She's like, Danny, it's in my book. I will keep talking and keep talking. So now where I used to be so frightened to even mention, Bill Gates, that murdering, genociding bastard that's just he killed so many people. I'm not sure who the biggest serial killer is going to be named. Will it be Fauci, or is there someone even worse than him? What are your
mean,
thoughts?
it's a curious one that, but yes, in simple terms, it would be it would be Fauci and Gates together, and the conspiracy that these two Vatican icons represent, for sure. Which is why they were the ones most squarely in my gun sights in all the public talking and touring that I've been doing since 2020. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, people go, "Oh no, don't you mean the big philanthropist?" Although now I really do see the shift, like in comments on things now online. It's like 9 out of 10 is a bit more of an oomph and a push. Maybe not 9 out of 10, maybe seven, but it's giving me such hope that because so much has dropped, the satanic now can't plug into the Greys and the reptilians that were. That's all been taken down.
Right.
And
Right.
so now the opening has happened. The
Yeah.
spells don't hold. And so people are going, hang on a second. It's like a beautiful revelation, to use your word from earlier. And I just hope that people are seeing that those of us truly bringing the light, truly bringing the love, and even if we get the odd thing wrong here and there, our hearts are fucking pure. We're doing it for humanity. We're not doing it for celebrity, certainly not for money. And we
I'll
have
speak for
to.
yourself. I'm in it for the cash and the
Yeah.
checks. Always was.
Should I just need to get a bit more like that? But because obviously we're not, oh yeah, but Jesus was all full of peace and he didn't get no money. Oh, shut up, Doris. I've had enough of you. Go and have another Guinness, and get right with God on Sunday, you hypocrite. It's just so ridiculous, isn't it? But yeah, the infiltration in our inner circles, our families, our friends, the being online, the audiences that we've had and have. Like, what would you say to those who were just so like deer in the headlights, or Danny Henderson's a satanic and she's evil, and whatever people are saying about anybody? What would
I
you
don't
advise?
have anything to say to people who are still choosing to gravitate toward the lower frequency set of human expression. I just don't have any interest. I've got more important stuff to anchor my life force to. So I'm deeply embedded, deeply invested in establishing a metric to the new Earth and into creating a new economy for the new Earth, a zero-point economy, a zero-point social ecology, to establishing these extraordinary initiatives which we're undertaking in Southeast Asia, in Bali, and in Lombok, in Central America, in Bacala Laguna, in Mexico, in Tennessee, in Africa, in Botswana, in Zambia, in Mozambique, and Malawi, where I've just returned from. I'm too busy involved in doing real stuff to give a flying proverbial fuck about people and their squalid squawks and grunts about who's who in the fucking zoo. Who cares what they think or what they say? Facebook means nothing to me. Instagram means less than nothing to me. Social media is an abomination, except for the fact that a lot of beautiful souls get to connect with the work that me and my team are doing, and I get to get feedback from a lot of beautiful, beautiful souls around the world. That to me is a litmus that is important to me, and it's why I still keep my hand in on social media. But as for the squalid kind of comments that come out, one particular guy in the last week is bitching about the New Earth coin because he invested a bit of chump change into one of the coins, or a couple of the coins of the New Earth coin, and it was bitching at the fact that I don't know what he was complaining about, but he was ending this as trolling comments, and my team just wrote back and said, "Well, we'll buy your coins off you right now. It's not a problem." Like today, and he didn't want to sell the coins to us. He just wanted to bitch, just wants to argue, just wants to be negative, and that was a kind of frozen moment because I said, "What do you mean he doesn't want?" Get rid of him. Get him out of the temple. I don't want anyone in who's ankle biting the work that we're doing
Mm.
based on whatever projections or grievances that they carry at the soul level. I just don't want any of that element in me, in or around me, or the ecosystem. So I'm happy to triage. I'm very much thinking, I was talking last year about ending my foray with social media, and I'm genuinely thinking that next year will be the time where I do clip it completely and completely vertically categorically excise myself altogether from the public domain because it's becoming now an irritant to me. It doesn't serve. I don't raise money from the public. I'm not out there soliciting for money and never was. If we launch a product and it sells, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Through the New Earth Pharmacy, or if we have a golden tickets to raise money and crowdsource land in Tennessee, which incidentally was a huge success, we did it in under 1 year from an idea, managed to buy a huge chunk of Middle America, consecrate it with all the great and the good flying in from all around the world. A hugely important event for the hereditary redemption of the Cherokee and all the First Nation peoples of the Americas. Pulled the thing off in a fantastical style, despite all the attacks and the hexing and the trolling and the naysaying and the scurrilous stuff and the slanderous shit out there. And so whatever I set my mind to, we will invariably succeed at. That I know. So absent the social media piece, it might make things certainly it would give me more focus to not have to even pay attention to the noise. But I don't want to do that right now because we've not quite yet built our own metaverse, and that's the process between this year and next year that I'm doing, so that the millions and millions of people out there who do love the work that the New Earth is doing, or the International Tribunal, or the World Hereditary Council, or Humanitad, or the New Earth Sovereignty Academy, or the New Earth University, or the various initiatives and organizations. We've got about 20 different websites. So there's a lot of work. I work 9 days a week. I just never, ever, ever stop. All my work is in service. I've never drawn a salary in my life. I generate the money. It pays for a huge overheads and staffing. I think there's about over 70 people on payroll, every month. Try that, you motherfuckers, having to, pay payrolls every month to keep something moving, keep this affirmation, this creative engine moving. And it takes a lot of integrity, of focus, integrity of mission to be able to hold and be the glue that binds that, despite being taking rocks at every side of the head, because I walk on the indivisible path in between this and that. So that's why people who are the Illuminati and part of the Sabbatean cliques, they want me dead and have gone out of their way to try to deaden, to ensure that I, am quiet. And people on the other side want me dead because they think I'm controlled opposition and a Vatican agent. So work it out. I get rocks at both sides of the head. So to hold that indivisible path in between, which is not engaging the dialectic, but is simply navigating a higher outcome for humanity based on group dreaming and based on affirmation and hard creative enterprise, and establishing jurisdiction, incubating these technologies, creating the fellowship and the community. That's the stuff I focus on. And I'm tired of being slandered and of being disabused by nobodies. It does get to a point where it's like an infestation, and you just like, oh, just fucking get off me, get off me. But having said that, I'll round it off by saying that we still get anywhere between 97 and 98% favorability, and there's about a 2 to 2.5% of negative. And that's across the board when we conduct our analytics. What does that teach me? It teaches me that the overwhelming majority of people who are looking in on the work that I'm doing, what I'm doing, absolutely are in gratitude and love toward me and my teams. And that feels good. And the 2% of trolling humans that make a lot of noise, because that's what that element does. They squawk and they squeal and they try to conflate and set things on fire. It's how the demon operates through people, and try to cause as much disruption as possible to the goodly work. One looks at them and thinks, well, like I said, they serve keeping the temple clean if they draw other low frequencies out of our network. So six of one, half a dozen of the other. Dani, what to say?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. I love that you laid that out. You mentioned the beautiful gathering with the Cherokee people and other tribes recently. And I wanted to say that I know you was there because two of my friends were with you, Danny and Brinkley.
Mm.
Uh,
Beloved. Mm.
beloved man. He's speaking at the next conference too. Danny and Brinkley, And Mel, his best friend of 46 years, also known as Chief Standing Eagle.
Yeah, no, beloved Mel is absolutely gorgeous human being. Love them both very much indeed. I'll connect with them. I'll be back in the States in about 3 weeks' time. After I'm heading back to Mexico tomorrow to the Bacalar project, and then after about 3 weeks, I'll head back to the States and I'll look in on Danny and then Mel. Yeah.
Ah, beautiful. Now, in closing, where can we direct people? Again, you've mentioned you have at least 20 different projects going on. These are long term. Most of them are long term. I almost bought at the Bacalar Lagoon when I was living in Costa Rica, but ended up coming back to England. But it looks so beautiful. The New Earth University. I mean, the renderings and drawings are incredible. Have you broken ground there? Are you
Well,
building?
the Mexico, the reason why I launched Tennessee is because we were so tired of waiting for the zoning in Mexico, because the bureaucracy in Mexico is an unbearable wait. Everyone knows that who develops out there. So 2 years in, we were still being dicked around and not being given the construction licenses like everyone else on the Bacala Laguna, because they changed last year. The municipal government changed, and we were about to start last year, and then there was a sort of 18 months ago, there was a switch of municipal government, and they declared everything void, go to the back of the queue, start again. They were changing all the rules and regulations. We were like, oh, don't do this. For the love of Christ, don't do this. We'd already been waiting for, a year, over a year. But that's just the way it plays out when a heavy bureaucracy is controlling stuff. So then, of course, some people get dispirited. Some investors want to pull out. Fine, they pulled out. The project last year was leaning over to one side. It was not looking good before Christmas. Now it's righted itself. It's fine. We own land. We're getting in fact, my sister told me yesterday that we have now got the fiducia, whatever they call it. So apparently it's all come through now. That's largely why I'm going back, spend time with the team on the ground there and the lawyers, and hopefully crack open a bottle. But having said that, in the meantime, a lot of people were also dispirited about Mexico with the tariffs that were introduced as soon as Trump came in. And that has affected a number of people who said, oh, God, well, we want to be with New Earth, but we don't want to be in Mexico. So it's like, oh, Christ. That's why last year I saw this happening. Before it happened, I saw it, and I'm so grateful I saw it. And that's why in July of last year, in fact, it was May of last year, I followed an intuition, a very deep intuition, and I went to Tennessee, and I discovered that Tennessee was the place with unrestricted land, the only place, the last place standing in America at this level, Hawkins County, where the land was unrestricted, where you can build whatever you want to build without constraints, without the zoning and permitting and all that usual shit.
Wow.
So I thought this is the perfect place to establish a New Earth project in Middle America, so that those New Earthers who don't want to move to Bali or Lombok or Africa, the other places we're setting forward, can stay in America, but come to Middle America, Tennessee. And that was when I launched the project July last year. And what are we? We've just gone July this year. The consecration was in June, 21st of June, which Daniel attended, Laura Eisenhower and Sheriff Richard Mack and Dr. David Martin and, hundreds and hundreds of people flew in from around the world. We pulled it off, consecrated the land, and now indeed the building has begun. So Tennessee is underway and will gallop because of the fact that it's unrestricted. And now Bacalar in Mexico will also, thankfully, move forward. So that architectural language which you saw, which is my architectural creations, is expressly, I designed that for the Laguna Bacalar. Tennessee is not. Tennessee is a different kind of architectural language, and what we're doing in Africa is also a different architectural language. But and same with Lombok and Bali, but that comports to the broad dynamics of a metric of spatial harmonics and bioresonance bioarchitecture. And that's a very, very real science that we've been involved in since 2008. We set up the institute in Bali to study bioarchitecture and bioresonance in 2008. So we've been at it for almost 20 years. And I believe we're very expert in the subject. So very excited that 25 into 2026 is the manifestation. So we've been setting up the metric for many years, establishing the jurisdiction. Now that we've established also New Earth Nation Coalition as a universally irrevocable universal trust corporation sole, with a whole 24 trusts all nested in together. We've created basically a Vatican um, structure to protect our diocese all around the world, all of our holdings, all of our land, all of our constituents, and investments. So yeah, it's all looking good, but there's a hell of a lot of hard thinking and hard planning and hard strategizing and working to create this kind of an ecosystem. It doesn't happen easily.
No, my God, it's just as well you don't smoke or drink. I mean, how the hell would you function with chemicals in the body with the thinking and staying aligned as you do? It's just incredible. What would be the best site for people to go to now so they can kind of get into what else you're doing? Because
Oh,
obviously,
I couldn't say, Dan. It's very kind of you to ask that. I just couldn't say. I mean, sashastone.com probably, but I haven't looked. I look in once a year there, but newearthhorizon.com. But
yeah,
actually, no, for your audience, I would say they should go to lazarusinitiative.com because the Lazarus Initiative is the community. That's my hardcore community, and that's the only platform that I use to speak full spectrum, full tilt, uncensored. Everything else is obviously just connected to those initiatives and those programs. But the Lazarus Initiative is where I host the Lazarus Symposium once a month, which is normally 7, 8 hour long symposium. We've got a huge archive and repository now and an AI search engine. We've just this last week launched a new website, and we've got our archive, our repository. So thousands of incredibly just magical interviews over the last 5 years, because I think we've gone, I can't remember, it's five years into the Lazarus now.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
huge body of work.
Yeah, they've been incredible. And, something else to say about that too. Like, do you know who Billy Carson is?
Yes, I do. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, yeah. So he's building like a Gaia or a Netflix, right? And I look on there, I'm like, oh my God, he's interviewed this and that and this, and they're Gray, and this has got this, and it's got to the point now where people, myself included, just gotta let go of judgment and go, do you know what? He bought broadcast interviews from someone to host on his platform. So if people want to watch that person, they can pay, they can watch that. Because we got to the point, let's say, in the galactic disclosure community, would they call it a community? I'm like, I'm not in a community. I'm an ET contactee. I'm in contact to put on these big events, but don't put me in your little group. I don't belong. I'm for humanity and off planet. That's my role. And so it's got to the point where they're like, oh, well, or like Danny talking to Sacha or Sacha's talking to Danny. People need to grow up and they need to grow up right now and including myself, and I have been really working hard on this, to just go, do you know what? It's all right. With like
Mm,
you said earlier, whatever's going on, and even the sweepers of the temple, there's a light in there somewhere. And
mm.
although I might be judging, we're all doing our best to find that we're on the seeker's journey. And so we need to accept that people know people that other people don't like. It doesn't mean the people that we like, we thought were good, are not good. It's like, get over it. It's just so tiresome, exhausting at this point. My soul is tired, Sasha.
Well, walk away from that whole melee is my advice, and don't put your life force in any way, shape, or form toward it. I'm completely untouched by it. I'm in love with the living moment, and whatever presents itself, like in the last few days, it's wonderful to hear from you again and see your beautiful face and engage with you. And this is real to me. This is real. This is the here and now, and that's a beautiful thing. But yeah, I personally, I'm just. I got to a point where I think saturation, where just I didn't want to do anything that was not is not affirmative, expansive, or creative. And so for me, that's the algorithm of moving forward into the new earth, so to speak, is to enact, embody, and manifest. And these are simple principles that each of us can just apply in our life. And very quickly, the garden that you plant becomes a very, very rich and prosperous one in that sense. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. Well, love you, wishing you the very best of everything that you're doing. I
Mm.
will find some links and put them underneath for people to look. And my God, Bacala, what a beautiful lagoon and the starfall outside.
Oh, darling, the most incredible place. Yeah.
Incredible, incredible. You've done some amazing things and you still do it. So you
Thank
take
you.
care of yourself, my love.
Thank you, darling girl. Much love to you.
God
Bye.
bless. See you
Bye.
soon. Bye,
Bye.
darling. Sacha Stone, good to see him. Glad to have him back on my channel. And again, people, we got to stop judging. We got to stop pointing fingers. I've been doing a lot of work on my own self this year, in particular, because stuff is out there that's making us fight. It's putting ideas into our head that aren't true. It's keeping people apart from each other. It's keeping us apart from each other. There's many different reasons why people tell stories. Many different reasons. Some of them are not very well in the head. Some of them are desperate to be part of a famous part, let's say in the galactic exposure and disclosure environment. Some of them are plants. We've all met them. I've certainly met them. Some of them are just straightforward numbnuts. The fact is that everyone does have a beauty in them. Everyone does have a heart in them. And it's often the people who are hurt the most that are hurting other people the most. But I want to tell you that when you're out there and you're lying and you're attacking people like me, Sacha, and other great people, Elena Danan, oh my God, I can't believe how bullied and attacked she is. You're hurting. You're hurting. You're hurting. You're a hurt person. So maybe you want to take some time to heal your beautiful self. Maybe you want to look at why you're so angry. Maybe you want to look at why you've been so brutally unkind and dishonest and attacked and said the worst imaginable things, the worst, cruelest lies. And I know there's a lot of confusion, but this is a time of healing and revelation and disclosure. So don't be scared. Don't be scared to advocate for yourself. Don't be scared to think for yourself. You know? Now, I have the most beautiful conference coming up in 6 weeks. Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection. Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection. And most of the people I mentioned with Sacha today are speaking at that event. Elena Danan, who brings information from upstairs from the Galactic Federation of Worlds. Danyan Brinkley. Danyan Brinkley is coming. The beautiful Daniel Brinkley has been dead more times than anybody I know. JP, the insider, who's been to the moon, who's been to Mars with the military and who was given permission by the military to share the moon missions. Oh, we didn't hear about it because NASA never said. No one's listening to NASA. Sit down, NASA. You've been very naughty. You had one job. To you NASAites that were in control, not the good people of NASA, not the astrophysicists, not the people who truly put their heart into their work. You've all been lied to too, my love. I'm sorry. But the numbnuts at the top who were controlling, they had a job to do, they failed. So now we just ignore them. We bring Elena Danan, who will tell you what's happening on Mars, or Tony Rodriguez, who was also on Mars and brought technology back to our planet. It's all true. Just because you never heard of it, so what? We all get to information at the right time. We all have to have proof. And that's what I do at my conferences, at my G6, at my Galactic Spiritual Informers conferences. I only bring people forward who I truly believe have evidence and proof and whistleblowing testimonies that maybe another whistleblower has seen them on a mission of some kind. It is a galactic and spiritual convergence. It is a meeting of minds. It is star, soul, tribe, family. And guess what? In terms of bringing physical proof, which I, Dani Henderson, live by, bring the physical evidence. If I'm going to tell you a story, if I'm going to bring information to you, you can bet your bum I am going to bring evidence. I am going to bring evidence. And when the other day, my friend Alex Collier, those of you that remember 30 years ago, this one man was out there screaming in the wind, telling us about the infiltration in the government and military level, government especially, the reptilian infection, the gray infection. Me and Alex have a very, very long history, a very, very, very long history, a lot of it behind the scenes. It's on my channel. It's the other, last night I put it out. Today is I can't see the date. It's like, I think the 10th, the 11th maybe of August. Anyway, Alex was there and he interviewed me about my conference and he's spoken most years. He's got a private celebration this year. Otherwise, he would be there on that weekend. We got Kathy O'Brien, who we talked about earlier, who's exposing the Vatican, the Bohemian Grove. Oh, yeah. Pentagon, the White House, all the names. All the names. If you can't get to a conference, at least get her book. Her partner, who was in high intelligence, American intelligence, rescued her and her little girl because she was going to end up in a very unpleasant end of life situation that was going to be filmed, and people in government had called for it. There are so many things that we can't talk about fully online. That is why I have my conferences. So please come. You are more than welcome to come. galacticspiritualinformers.com, galacticspiritualinformers.com. And again, I hope that you enjoyed my chat with Sacha. He's like me, he's very outspoken. He's very honest in himself and his beliefs and what he's done and what he's doing. And we are evolving. And some of us trigger other people. I know I trigger people. I never want to do it. I never want to upset anyone. But sometimes you just got to give Nelly a bit of a slap. Come on, Nelly. Come on, my love. This is for all of us. Disclosure is for all of us. It is our deservement to hear the truth, the real truth, with evidence, with evidence. So I will leave that with you. Lots of love. My name is Dani Henderson. I send you love from my heart to yours, and it's going to be all right. Don't be scared. Come to my conference, buy a ticket, come and join your star family, your soul family. Come and see the craft, not just from off planet, but also the military personnel who work hand in hand. And we've proved it over and over, and we're going to do it again. Your name is on that event. galacticspiritualinformers.com. I'll see you soon, friends. I'll see you soon.